Welcome to the Globalduniya Travel Podcast. I am Anadi Mishra from Globalduniya Canada. Since this is the first episode, I'll quickly tell you what this podcast is going to be about. Basically, I want this to be a place where we talk about travel in a more practical way. Not just nice destinations, nice beaches, nice hotels and all that. That has its place, of course, but before someone ever reaches the destination, there are so many decisions that can make the trip easier or harder. Which flight should you book? Is this package actually a good deal? Is this hotel location good, or does it only look good in photos? Is this layover okay, or is it going to become a problem? Should you book now or wait? Should you do it yourself online, or does the situation actually need a travel agent? These are the kinds of questions people deal with all the time, but most travel content does not really explain them properly. At Globalduniya, we work with flights, vacation packages, custom tours, group travel, corporate travel, and a lot of family travel as well. We are based in British Columbia, but we help people with trips all over the world. A lot of people come to us after they have already spent time searching online. They have checked Google Flights, Expedia, airline websites, maybe asked a friend, maybe asked in a family group. And now they have 10 different options, but not real clarity. And honestly, I understand that. Travel looks simple until you actually have to make the decision, because two options can look similar, but they may not be similar at all. One flight may include better baggage, one may have a better connection, one may have a better timing, one may be easier for parents or children, one may be cheaper but more risky, one may be more expensive but not actually better. So this podcast is really about helping people understand those differences before they spend their money. My role at Globalduniya is a mix of things. I work on the travel side, the marketing side, the system side, and the client side. So I get to see both the traveler's confusion and the industry logic behind it. I see what people ask, where they get stuck, what they worry about, and what the mistakes keep repeating. That is why I think this kind of podcast is useful. Not because I want to sit here and pretend travel is some mysterious thing only experts can understand. It is not. But there are small details that matter, and if someone explains those details clearly, people can make much better decisions. So that is the purpose of the Globalduniya Travel Podcast, to make travel a little clearer before you book. For the first episode, I want to start with a topic we deal with all the time: flights to India. More specifically, how to book flights to India without overpaying. And I want to make this episode practical, not theory, not vague advice like book early and be flexible. Those things are true, but they're not enough. So let's talk about what actually helps. The first thing I tell people is this: start tracking before you're fully ready to book. This sounds simple, but it makes a big difference. A lot of clients come to us when they're already close to the travel date. By that time, they're asking, is this expensive? Is this normal? Should I wait? And the problem is, if we have not been watching the route, there is no context. A price by itself does not tell the full story. For example, if someone is flying from Vancouver to Delhi in November, and for a few weeks we keep seeing decent one-stop options around $1,500 or $1,600, then suddenly a clean option shows up around $1,350. That tells us something. That is not just a random number anymore. It's a fare we can take seriously. This is where we help clients quietly. We are not just checking one website once. We are looking at the pattern. What are the routes doing? What are similar dates showing? Is the price actually good? Does it only look good because the route is bad? Sometimes I'll tell a client, this fare is okay, but not special. Other times I'll say, this one is actually good. If these dates work, I would not wait too long. That is the kind of judgment people are usually missing when they search alone. The second thing is, do not lock yourself into one exact date too quickly. I see this all the time. Someone says, I need to leave Friday and come back Sunday. And yes, sometimes that is true. Work, school, wedding, family plans, not everyone has full flexibility. But many times when we ask one more question, we find out there is some room. Maybe they can leave one day earlier, maybe they can return 2 days later, maybe they cannot change the departure but the return date is flexible. That small flexibility can change the fare. For example, with family travel, this matters a lot. If one person saves $100, okay, that's helpful. But if 4 people are traveling, now the same small difference becomes $400. If the date shift is easy, why not check it? So when someone comes to us, we usually do not only search the exact date they gave us. We check nearby dates. Sometimes we check a shorter trip, sometimes a longer trip. Not because we want to confuse the client, but because we want to see where the value is hiding. A lot of times, the best option is not on the date the client first gives. It is sitting one day beside it. The third thing is, do not only think about the airport, think about the final destination. This is very, very important for India. Many people say Delhi because Delhi is familiar, but they are not actually staying in Delhi. They're going to Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, or somewhere else. So when someone says, I want the cheapest flight to Delhi, I usually want to know, where are you going after Delhi? Because that changes the decision. If someone is going to Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Chandigarh, Amritsar, or a village in Punjab, then Delhi may be cheaper on paper, but the journey is not finished when they land. They still need to get out of the airport, get transportation, drive for hours, possibly after a long international flight. For a young person, maybe that's fine. For elderly parents, maybe not. For a family with kids and multiple blacks, maybe that cheap Delhi fare is not really cheap once you add the exhaustion, pickup cost, and stress. So at Globalduniya, we try to look beyond the airport code. We ask where the traveler actually needs to go. Sometimes Delhi is still the best choice. Sometimes Amritsar makes more sense. Sometimes another airport is worth checking. The goal is not to force one answer. The goal is to understand the full journey. The fourth thing is, baggage has to be checked before anyone celebrates the price. This one comes up constantly. India travelers care about baggage, and they should. People are carrying gifts, clothes, medicines, wedding outfits, documents, sometimes things for relatives, sometimes things they were told to bring by 10 different family members. So when I see a fare that is $80 or $100 cheaper, I do not get excited until I check the baggage. A client may say, this one online is cheaper. Then we look closely and realize the cheaper fare has weaker baggage, or only one checked bag, or stricter conditions. Now the comparison changes. If the client needs 2 bags and the cheaper ticket only includes 1, then the cheaper ticket may not be cheaper anymore. It was just cheaper before the real cost showed up. This is one of the most common ways people accidentally overpay. They think they saved money at booking, then pay later through baggage fees, inconvenience, or restrictions. When we quote flights, we try to make this clear. Not just, here's the price, but here is what is included. Because the included part matters. The fifth thing is, layovers can make or break the journey. I have seen tickets that look amazing because the total travel time was short, but the connection is too tight. On paper, the airline may allow it. In real life, it may be a stressful mess. This matters especially when parents are traveling alone. 1 hour connection in a big airport may be fine for a frequent traveler who walks fast, knows how airports work, and has no mobility issues. But for parents, seniors, someone with wheelchair assistance, or someone nervous about airports, that same connection can be a bad idea. So sometimes when I look at a fare, I'm not only thinking, can this person technically make the flight? I'm thinking, should this person be put through this route? That is a different question. I would rather tell a client, this is cheaper, but I do not like the connection, than sell something that will look good and becomes painful at the airport. The same is true for very long layovers. If someone saves $70 but has to sit in an airport for 10 or 12 hours, is that really a good deal? For some travelers, maybe. For others, absolutely not. This is where advice matters. The best ticket is not always the shortest or the cheapest. It's the one that makes sense for the traveler. The sixth thing is, be very careful with separate tickets. This is one of those things that looks clever until something goes wrong. Sometimes a traveler finds a cheaper option by booking one flight to Europe or the Middle East, then separate flight onward to India. The price may look better, but the risk is higher. If everything goes perfectly, fine. But if the first flight is delayed and the second flight is on a separate ticket, the second airline may treat it as a missed flight. Baggage may not transfer. The traveler may have to collect bags, recheck them, go through extra processes, and possibly deal with transit rules. I do not like recommending this casually, especially for families, seniors, or people who are not very comfortable with airports. Sometimes separate tickets can work, but they need to be handled carefully. You need enough time between flights, you need to know the airport, you need to understand baggage and transit rules, and you need to accept the risk. So when we see these creative, cheap routes, We do not just look at the saving, we look at what happens if something goes wrong. Because a saving that disappears after one delay is not really a saving. The seventh thing is, screenshots are not the full truth. This one is very common. Someone sends a screenshot and says, I found it cheaper. And that is fine. I actually do not mind when clients send screenshots. It helps us understand what they're seeing. But then we have to compare properly. Is it the same date? Same airport, same baggage, same airline, same layover, same currency, same fare class, same refund or change rule, same number of passengers? Is the fare still available when you click through? Many times, once we check, it is not the same ticket. Sometimes the price is in US dollars, sometimes baggage is different, sometimes the final price changes at the checkout. Sometimes the layover is much worse, sometimes the dates are not actually the same. So I usually tell clients, send the screenshot, but let us inspect it. The goal is not to prove anyone wrong. The goal is to make sure we're comparing the same thing. Because if we compare only numbers, we can make bad decisions. We have to compare the full ticket. The eighth thing is, understand the season you're traveling in. This is another place where people get confused. Someone may say, my friend went to India for $1,200. Why is mine $1,800? So, I ask, but when did that friend travel? If they traveled in February and you're traveling in December, that comparison may not mean much. India flight prices change with demand. December is different. Summer holidays are different. Diwali is different. Wedding season is different. School breaks are different. So when clients ask whether a fare is expensive, I have to look at the season, not just the route. For example, if someone has fixed December dates, I'm going to treat that very differently from someone traveling in a quieter month with flexible dates. The strategy changes. During peak season, waiting too long can be costly because the better options disappear. During slower periods, sometimes you have more room to monitor. This is where an agency sees more than one person's search. We see patterns across many travelers. We see when families start asking. We see which routes are moving. We see which periods are getting expensive. That helps us guide people more realistically. The ninth thing is, use fare alerts. Do not let them make you greedy. Fare alerts are useful. I like them. They help people watch the market. But they can also make people hesitate too much. A client may see a good fare and think, maybe it will drop a little more, and sometimes it does. But sometimes it disappears. Then the same client comes back 2 days later and the fare is gone, or the route is worse, or the package is not as good. That is why the decision cannot be based only on hope. If the price is reasonable, the route is good, the package works, and the dates are right, sometimes the smart move is to just book. Not because we're trying to rush anyone, because a good option is only useful while it exists. When I advise clients, I try to be honest. If I think they can wait, I will say that. If I think the fare is strong and the risk of waiting is high, I will say that too. That is the value of having someone experienced looking at it. Sometimes the advice is not book now. Sometimes the advice is wait. Sometimes it's change the date. Sometimes it is avoid this route. The point is to make the decision with context. The 10th thing is, know when using a travel agent makes sense. I do not think every single flight needs an agent. If you're traveling alone, you're flexible, baggage is simple, and you're comfortable handling everything yourself, booking online can be perfectly fine. But many Indian trips are not like that. Sometimes it's parents traveling alone. Sometimes it's a family with children. Sometimes it's a wedding group. Sometimes the dates are fixed. Sometimes baggage is important. Sometimes the traveler needs wheelchair assistance. Sometimes the route is complicated. Sometimes the return date may change. This is when an agent can help. Not because the internet does not show flights. It does. The internet gives options. A good agent helps you understand which options actually make sense. For us, the work is not just searching, it is filtering, checking, comparing, explaining, warning, sometimes saying, this fare is fine, sometimes saying, I would avoid this, sometimes finding a better nearby date, sometimes telling the client that online fare they found is actually good. That honesty matters. Because the goal should not be to sell any ticket, the goal should be to help the person book the right ticket. The 11th thing is, know what to do when baggage goes wrong. This does not help you get a cheaper fare, but it can save you money and stress later. If a bag does not arrive, do not just leave the airport and hope it gets solved later. File the report before leaving. If possible, keep the baggage tags. Keep the reference number. If you need to buy essentials, keep receipts. People are tired when they land. I understand that. After a long flight to India, nobody wants to stand at the airport dealing with paperwork. But those first steps matter. This is also where having a travel advisor helps. We cannot control the airline, but we can guide clients on what to document, what to ask for, and what to do next. Sometimes that support makes a big difference because the traveler is already stressed. So let's bring this together. If you want to book flights to India without overpaying, do not only ask, what is the cheapest ticket? Don't just look at the cheapest fare. Look at what is actually included, how the route works, how the baggage works, and whether the journey makes sense. That alone can save people a lot of money and stress. At Globalduniya, we deal with these questions every day. So I hope this was helpful. If it made the flight booking process a little clearer, then the episode did its job. And if you ever need help from our team, we are here. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.